Welcome to Keeping Up with Jones, the Lonnie Jones podcast adventure. You are going to hear the stories from the eclectic life of a guy who is a professional counselor, a family man, a SWAT team chaplain, outdoor enthusiast, a guy involved with ropes, 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu, a chaotic Jedi, and who is a recipient of an honorary doctorate from the University of Adversity. Using these stories, we take the facts lead to concepts, and from the concepts we make a variety of life applications. Just a caveat about the facts. Most of the time we will tell you the facts just the way it happened, but once in a while we'll give you the facts the way other people remember how it happened, and that usually includes a tablespoon of embellishment. No harm is meant, just good, clean fun for educational purposes. Please subscribe and share this with your friends or your enemies. It might help them to be better people if they listen. As always, we thank you for keeping up with Jones, the Lonnie Jones podcast adventure. Introducing the Bible degree with digital ministry. Paul used the marketplace and the synagogue to reach an expanded audience. We have access to the internet and social media. I once heard it said that when McDonald's introduced the drive-through window, they did not change the Big Mac, only how it was delivered. Faulkner University is now offering a new digital ministry track for their Bible degree. Faulkner's degree provides training in understanding and teaching the gospel, alongside training that will allow students to create quality digital content. Opportunities for evangelism in the digital spaces is unlimited, and this is innovative ministry education for our contemporary culture. One of the instructors is a 2-time Emmy-winning former ESPN designer. Members of the Church of Christ could be eligible for the full tuition Jack Zorn Scholarship in order to pursue this special area of study. For more information, contact admissions at faulkner.edu. That is admissions at faulkner.edu. Faulkner University is a digital partner with Keeping Up with Jones, the Lonnie Jones podcast adventure. An elliptical runner. It's a machine designed to allow one to exercise and have their legs move in an elliptical path rather than the up and down hard pounding of a treadmill or the punishment of jogging outside. In speech or writing, an ellipsis, it means to omit from speech or writing words that are superfluous or are able to be understood from contextual clues. The word in Greek, ellipsis, elliptical, actually means to leave out. One of my favorite T-shirt slogans involves an ellipsis. The T-shirt says, and I quote, "There are two kinds of people in the world. Those who can extrapolate from incomplete data, ... There's also the idea of an elliptical form, an elliptical shape, or an elliptical path. It's not like a circle, the bottom half of a circle, but it's like the bottom half or a partial oval. If you look at a playground swing, it has an elliptical glide path. The giant swings at amusement parks often have the same type of gentle, partial oval elliptical path. A smile zip line is sort of elliptical. You know, there are zip lines that when you leave point A, instead of going all the way to point B, you go from point A and you slide down a curved path and you go toward point B, but you run out of momentum and then you slide back down. We call those a smile zip line. And then you, instead of going from point A to point B, you actually dismount from the middle rather than a linear platform to platform zip line. I just rode the Mega Zip at Wildside up near Pigeon Forge. It's a 5,771 foot zip line. It drops from 2,472 feet to 1,377 feet, and it is a point-to-point zip line, and it is not an elliptical or a smile. It's well worth the trip to Pigeon Forge to ride the thing. The giant swings, the first giant swing I ever rode was at Berry College. And Berry College had several. There's the giant swing at the old mountain campus. There's a giant swing inside the old gymnasium, which is at the Winship campus. And then you had the dual exit giant swing from the new course that was on the main campus. All of those swings involved climbing a platform, and then them bringing two cables that were joined in the middle and attaching them to your harness. This swing yoke was attached to you, and you held onto it, and then you step off of a platform into space. Now, even though the glide path of these swings is elliptical, you're standing way below where the thing is attached. It's very intimidating to people. In fact, it was so intimidating to some people that some people just refused to do it. And then they would type the element for a long, long time. You'd have a group of people waiting, and you can't get them to swing, and you can't get them to climb back down because they're too afraid to leave the platform just to climb down. If they weren't afraid to leave the platform, they'd swing. So when we built our giant swing on Kill Mountain, we didn't want the participants to have to climb or step off of anything. And that way, if they got into trouble or they did something dumb or they were being difficult or they just were experiencing fear from being up high, what we built was a swing by choice. And the swing by choice was just simply that. You could choose to swing or not to swing, but if you chose not to swing, we could just lower you back to the ground. You didn't have to climb anything other than a step ladder. You climb the step ladder, and we would attach you to a cable that would pull you into the air. And then all you had to do was let go of the release mechanism. And if you decided not to do it, if you hesitated too long or you're just a problem, we didn't have to talk you off the ledge, as it were. We just lower you back to the ground and get the next person loaded up and ready to swing. Now, if you don't understand the design of a giant swing, just picture three poles or three trees set in a triangle pattern. The swing itself consists of the two poles at the base of the triangle, and the third pole is at the tip of the triangle, and it has a pulley at the top with a cable attached to it. And when you attach that to the person who's swinging, it pulls them into the air toward the top of the pole. Now, the swing doesn't endanger you because you've got a pole on the right and a pole on the left. You got a cable coming from the right and a cable coming from the left, and you're attached to the point of those two cables, and that's what makes the swing. And then you get pulled up into the air, and once you get pulled up into the air, you're holding on to some kind of a release mechanism. We chose to use a wrapped piece of webbing so that you didn't have any mechanical failures. You just open your hand and you would fly through the air. The participant would hold on, be hauled up into the air by their team, and just let go and swing. The first one we built on Kill Mountain, we accidentally built one, and the flight path of the swing was not elliptical. It was like a half pipe, not part of an oval, but the bottom half of a circle. We accomplished this because the release point was slightly higher than where the swing cables were actually attached to the other trees. This was due to a decline in topography. And so when we moved the course and we built the course at Wellstone, we purposely copied that design so that you'd have this half pipe drop. I prefer speed and terror on a giant swing over something that's boring. Now, in case you can't picture this, just think about, taking a clock that's broken. There are no gears in it, and you've got the long hand of the clock. And and you can just thump it and spin around like a spinner. So you take the long hand of the clock and you use it as a pendulum, and you put your finger on the clock, assuming that the gears are broken, and you move the clock hand and it swings freely from the center, and you swing it to 8 o'clock, and then you move your finger and you let it go, and then it just gently swings between 8 and 4 o'clock, and that's your elliptical swing path. Now picture taking the same clock and taking your finger and taking that long hand of the clock, and it's pointed at 6 o'clock, and then you move it all the way up to 10 o'clock. The end of that arm is now higher than where it's attached in the center, and then you move your finger and it swings from 10 o'clock all the way around to 2 o'clock. That was our swing. Some of our best challenge course stories came from that swing. Oh, I love that swing element. My dear friend that I've talked about before, Paul Richardson, the Texan, He'd come to town one year on his annual pilgrimage after tax season, and we were going to go to Kill Mountain. I was going to let him see the new course. But before we went to see my new course, I had to ride in his new Corvette. And he took me on a tour on Gurley Pike in this new Corvette. Now, I'm not a car guy, and it would do a disservice to this car if I tried to give you some kind of description of the horsepower and the torque and all that kind of stuff. But let's just say in the skilled hands of the Texan, this thing, you could break the tires loose on the pavement in second and third gear. All I know is that the whole time I was riding in this car, I was hearing a smash up of two songs, Eastbound and Down and Danger Zone from Top Gun. And so after we landed the wingless F-16, we left the Batmobile and we got into my truck and we went up to Kill Mountain to shoot. And I was so proud of my new ropes course and the new project there. I wanted to share it with my friend Paul. Now, you got to understand, Paul loves to drive fast, and he's an excellent driver. We've done some really cool stuff together in cars. But if he's not in control, he doesn't like to move fast. In fact, he would get motion sickness just sitting on the decorative swings on the college campus as we would sit there in the late afternoons and watch the wildlife walk to and fro from the girls' dorms. And Paul was smitten. He was smitten by a young lady named Gail Tillery, and they would end up marrying each other. And they've been married, since we were in college. But Paul was smitten by Gail, and I had not yet started dating Jackie, but he would accompany me and sit in these swings and help me do my nature studies. And I couldn't push that swing back and forth with just gently rocking by moving my foot. And Paul said, Jonesy, you got to quit. I'm getting sick. Now, as an aside, we were sitting in the swing one afternoon, and I was observing wildlife, and I made an inquiry. I saw a young lady, and then I asked Paul if he knew her identity. You knew who that is? And Paul said, "You mean the brunette in the black skirt, silk blouse with the high heels?" And I said, "Yeah, her." He goes, "I didn't see her," but I digress. Here's a guy who get motion sick with me just pushing the swing back and forth with my toe. And now I've got him attached to a giant swing on Kill Mountain, and he's 45 feet in the air. Now, it's just me and just him, so I got him attached to the swing, and I moved the step ladder out of the way, and I attached the pull cable to my four-wheeler, and I pulled him up into the air. Once I got him peaked out, once I got him as high as I could get him on the four-wheeler, I said, "Hey, why don't you just switch hands? Let go with your right hand and switch that grip with your left hand." He hadn't carefully thought this decision through, so when he let go with one hand before he could grab with the other hand, the swing released him. Now, when you let go of this thing, it's like that 10 o'clock to 2 o'clock drop on the clock face. It's almost like dropping into a half pipe. It's almost vertical. The cable catches you, but only after you've been falling for a while and think that this thing broke and you're falling to your death. And then it grabs you and it arcs you through with all those G forces through the bottom of the swing and takes you back out to the top. You peak out at the top of the opposite side, that full swing arc, and then you stall. And I mean stall. There's a slight pause. There's just a little bit of slack comes back into the cable, and you feel as if you've got time that you could hold up that little Wile E. Coyote sign that says, bye-bye, and then you drop back into the trough and go back to the other side of the half pipe. The first two trips are very exciting. And then after that, it's a gentle swing. Now you peek out on the other side of that thing and you fall back into that swing just like you did when you first let go, only you're going backwards. On the second or third pass, Paul finally got his breath and could speak, and all I heard him say was, "I'm gonna kill you." On another occasion, we had a group of executive ladies on the ropes course. And one particular lady announced, "Hey, I'm terrified, but I'm choosing to do this to set an example for my team and lead by example. I'm going to overcome my preset limits." And she allowed us to pull her all the way to the top of the swing. And she got over to the top of the swing, and when she let go, It was ultimate silence. Often when you let go of the swing, there's a phenomenon of ecstatic utterances and unrepeatable words. One young lady, I think she was a volleyball coach, she let go, and as soon as she turned loose and gravity grabbed her, she began to call upon God. She said his name 3 times in rapid succession. As she flew past us, she stalled out at the top, fell back in backwards, and switched to Jesus. Had we kept her swinging and let her continue to swing, I believe she'd have listed all the apostles and all the Old Testament prophets. But this lady was absolutely silent. She'd gone to the top. She'd gone through the things about, when she's supposed to swing. And we let her go, and she dropped, and she's gripping the harness connector as if she could squeeze juice from the spliced half-inch tether, and she's curled into a somewhat fetal position. And as we're waiting on the momentum to die down, I called up to her, "Hey, let go." And you could safely let go. In fact, many people rode this thing, my daughter included, with no hands whatsoever. But after the first few passes, the first few iterations of swinging, you can let go, and it's just like a very relaxing big playground swing. It's only the first 3 or 4 passes that are really exhilarating or terrifying, depending on how you land on that. Well, I just yelled up to her, "Let go." I said, "Just let go with one hand." She came back by, and I said, "Raise your hands if you love Jesus." And she said, "He know," but she still didn't let go. We often ended our challenge course days by using the giant swing. It'd be the last thing a group did together. And then after everybody had taken their turn to swing, we'd circle the groups up and we'd debrief. We'd talk about not just that element, but the whole day. And typically we would ask, "Hey, what's the best thing you did? What is something you're proud of? What's something you learned? What is something you saw someone else do that showed leadership or courage or inspiration?" And more often than not, we would end our day, the last takeaway we would give our group, we would just simply ask, "Hey, just for your consideration, before you wrap up and get on your bus and go home, when did you decide to let go at the top of the swing?" Now, Paul Richardson as the exception, the protocol was for us to pull you into the air, and the participant would yell, "Is the swing lane clear?" And then one of the instructors would yell out, "The lane is clear." And then the participant would yell, "I'm swinging." And then we would yell, "Swing on." And then you let go and swing. So often we'd ask, "Hey, when did you decide? When did you make the decision to let go of that swing strap?" And very often people would say, "Well, I decided to let go when you told me I could." Some people would say, "Hey, I decided to let go when I checked and made sure for myself that the lane was actually clear." Some people said, "Well, after I talked to Jesus." We had a variety of answers, and that's the intriguing part of experience-based learning. You never know what people are going to discover. You never know what they're going to discover about other people. You never know what they're going to discover about themselves. But our preloaded answer, the reason we chose to close with this element and chose to close with this question is our staff or the facilitators would ask them, "I want you to consider this. You decided to let go of the connecting strap on that swing before you ever climbed onto the step ladder. You made the decision to turn loose of that thing before you were ever attached to it, or else you would have never gotten onto the ladder." Our critical commitment decisions should not be made 55 feet in the air while your hearts are hammering out of your chest and you can't breathe. If we wait until we're in the situation or faced with the situation before we've given thought to what we're going to do in the situation, more often than not, we decide to do the wrong thing, or we do something based on emotion and not intention. Sometimes when faced with those kind of decisions, if we haven't practiced or rehearsed or predetermined, sometimes we don't act at all. And sometimes it's a reaction more than a response. Important decisions are made before it's time to make the decision. Football games. are not won on Friday nights under stadium lights. They are won in weight rooms on Sunday afternoons. They are won in the summertime during 3-a-days in August while everybody else is on their last beach trip before school starts. Basketball games are not won on Thursday nights on hardwood courts, but they're won on Monday mornings in driveways or on dirt courts in the backyard shooting free throws. A sword never lost a battle. The fault is always with the swordsman. Decisions about purity, fidelity, morality, honesty, they're not made in the heat of the moment facing the temptation, but they're made weeks and months and years before, when we made the commitments to spouses, to certain principles. We made a promise to God about what our morals, our ethics, our rules, behavior, and our values were going to be. What you are determines what you do. Preparation that is physical, reps, practice, drills, visualization, they're all vital to the process, but they're vital to the process because they condition, they train our bodies to respond without thinking. It's unconscious competence. But there's also mental and psychological and spiritual preparation. Values, principles, goals, ideals, promises, commitments are preconditioned such that our response is pre-engineered, if you will. Once we make a decision, once we decide who we are, once we decide whose we are, once we decide what we are, when we decide what we're going to be, not what we're going to do, when we decide what we're going to be, then what we're going to do, that subsequent choice has already been made. Just like our giant swing that we built. We build our decisions with the path of the pendulum already in our mind. But when we make those kind of decisions and we preload those decisions, then our path is not curved and it is not elliptical. But the path that we pre-engineer into our lives is straight and narrow. Using the tool of shortwave radio, World Christian Broadcasting literally covers the world every day with the gospel. They use 2 large curtain antennas. One is located in Anchor Point, Alaska, and the other in Madagascar. They send out messages that are recorded at their international home in Franklin, Tennessee. They make available 40 hours of broadcast every day. The broadcasts are made in English, Chinese, Russian, Spanish, Portuguese, Korean, English for Africa, and Arabic. They would love for your group to visit them. You can bring your ladies group, your youth group, or your men's group. Just give them a call at 615-371-8707, 615-371-8707, or you can go to worldchristian.org, find the Donate Here button, and make a financial contribution to support this work that literally covers the world every day with the gospel. World Christian Broadcasting, in cooperation with Keeping Up with Jones, the Lonnie Jones podcast adventure.